Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I'm your host, Frankie Corcoran. How we all doing? How we all doing on this amazing July day? One of our last episodes of the month, which is crazy to think about. And actually, you know what? I just realized this will be the last episode of my 24s in the year 24 because I will be 25 at the next episode, July 29th. But then that'll release July 30th. But anyways, I'm halfway to 50, almost halfway to 50. So that's going to be exciting. Or I don't know. It really just depends on how you look at it. Sorry, I just dropped that. There we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, lots of stuff going on though. And when you get to halfway to 50, not that you're acting like life, you're old now. You're not really old. You're just, this is it. It's one of those milestones. Like everybody does that once they turn 40, once they turn 30, once they turn 50, 65. You know what I mean? Like that's when you're just kind of like, holy shit, like, time's going quick. So yeah, that's one of those moments for me. But lots on the go, which is great. We're writing something that's going to go on in September. I don't want to give too much details on it right now. You guys will hear updates on our Facebook page and stuff like that in the days to come, but we're writing a script right now. We got something planned for November. And we also have something planned for August, near the end of August, just a little something. Lots of stuff to come, and I'm super stoked. And also, Corcoran Entertainment will be at the Rock and Roll Festival this Friday and Saturday. We'll be kind of running the Bouncy Castle, which is really, really exciting. So can't wait for all that. And lots on the go. Just because you're almost 25, this is the last one of your youth. I mean, not really my youth. Or end of my youth, but it's just crazy. And anyways, I'm acting like this is like I'm gonna die after this. So anyways, moving on to the show, moving on to bigger things. I don't want to ramble in the intro about how I'm getting older and stuff. Let's move on to our guest today. So our guest today is a very, very funny man. His name is Ben Alper. He's a freelance comedy writer, and he's written for so many amazing people in the business. I'm talking Jay Leno, Joan Rivers, David Letterman, all kinds of amazing people. You could check out his book, which I highly, highly recommend you read this book. Live from the beginning of time, late night comedy monologues through the ages. It's on Amazon and everywhere where you get your books. It is a hilarious book, and this guy's super, super funny. I highly encourage you guys to buy the book, show some support for Ben. Hilarious guy. We talk a lot about, writing jokes, different styles of humor, a little bit of Trump stuff in there, but, because it's funny, I never addressed, this isn't a politics, isn't a politics podcast, but what crazy things have been going on in the States with Trump getting shot, which was unreal. He pulled through, but it's just crazy how it all, how things have gone. But anyways, we're not here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about entertainment. That's why we're here. So speaking of entertainment, later in the show, I want to talk about top 5 reasons why I think Shrek 5 is going to hit $1 billion. Not if it will make $1 billion or how it can make $1 billion. I do think Shrek 5 will hit $1 billion, and I'm going to give my thoughts as to why. And I also want to talk about Alec Baldwin's future post-trial, the Russ situation. That's all done. Everything's cleared up. And now what's going to happen with Alec Baldwin now in terms of his career? Let's discuss that. But anyways, guys, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's podcast. All right. Hey, everybody. What's going on? Welcome back to the Corcoran Entertainment Show. I'm your host, Frankie Corcoran. And today I got a very special guest who's done lots of work in the comedy scene. Of course, has written for Jay Leno, David Letterman, among some of the greatest, the late Joan Rivers. He has a really, really hilarious book, which is called Live from the Beginning, or Live from the Beginning of Time, sorry, Late Night Comedy Monologues Through the Ages. It is a absolutely stellar book. You can get that Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you get your books at. I normally say Amazon because that's always my go-to, and it's the most convenient. Ben Alper. Ben, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Frankie.
Yes, well, thank you for coming on, and I just got to say, it's always such an honor to talk to people who have worked with some of the greats because just that's not something everybody can say that they've done. Like, you've written for David Letterman, Joan Rivers, any other people that you've written for, like for shows and stuff. Joan Rivers, I mentioned too. Is there anybody else that comes to mind?
Um, Not anybody I can mention. A lot of people don't want you to know that they've hired writers. They
Oh, well,
like they'd like
keep
you to
that.
think that they wrote all the stuff themselves. But those are the main ones. I've written for um, maybe not so big a names, but just local people. I've written for politicians, business people, um, anybody who needs something funny to say. I've written for roast. I've written a lot of roast material. Um, I'm essentially a lifelong freelancer, which is a little different from being, say, a staff writer on a show. Um, my office has always been my my I won't say bedroom, my room in my house or apartment, which is where I've always preferred to be.
Well, there, wherever you feel the best at, do you prefer the freelance or do you prefer working with a team? Like, how do you kind of see it? Because some people like to have a group to bounce ideas off of, but then it's also good because you can kind of be your own boss. But do you have a preference?
I'm a lifelong dedicated introvert. So I've always liked working by myself, and I'm very comfortable with that. In fact, I wrote another humorous book called "Thank You for Not Talking," a humorous look at being an introvert. So I think I wrote the book on that. So I've always just preferred working by myself, uh, and I understand how other people like working with people, but it's this is just the way I've always worked.
No, exactly. And I mean for everyone it's different. Some people prefer to have those because when you're working with the staff, and pitch jokes back and forth, you get the instant reactions. But when you're working by yourself, the only one you have to bounce ideas off is you. So are there any pros and cons in the sense that you're okay, maybe you write this joke and then you see it in the finished product and you're like, oh crap, I should have ran that by somebody? Or is it kind of just, yeah, it's still good, it's still fine the way it is? Or I mean, that's, I say that every artist does that, where no matter how good their product is and their writing is, you will still find some way to go, oh shit, I should have done that better, I should have done that better. Are you like that? Or
Well, part of being a writer, or particular this kind of writing, is you have to put yourself in the head of the person you're writing for. So if you're watching someone day and night, year after year after year, you kind of know how they think after a while. Um, so and if you write a joke, for instance, for Jay Leno, and he basically tells the joke word for word the way you wrote it, you know you're doing it right. Uh, every once in a while, you'll write something, and they'll just take the germ of that and rewrite it. But I mean, that's part of being a good freelance writer, is you got to put yourself in the head of whoever you're writing. And it took me a while to get that, to be honest with you. I won't mention who this was, but I remember early on there was someone who wanted me to write for him, and I tried and tried. And looking back, and I remember he sent me a comedy album of himself. And looking back now, I realize no, I didn't really listen to what he was doing. So it just took some time for me to figure it out. Um, but if you're watching a comedian day in and day out, you just know you can put yourself in their head. You have to.
No, exactly. Especially when that's your job and you watch so much of it too. Do you ever writing for such big people like that? Like as I said, Jay Leno, David Letterman, the late great Joan Rivers, who actually someone just said she passed away 10 years ago this year, which is wild to think about. When you write for people like that, is there always a fear of are they going to think this is good? Is it one of those jokes that I'm going to pitch this to them, but then just say, I didn't write it. Somebody else wrote it because you're worried that they're not going to like it? Or do you just give it to them and just hope for the best? Like, how does that work?
I mean, number one, if you send 10 jokes, you don't expect to sell 10 jokes. You gotta sell a lot, you gotta write a lot, and that goes for anybody. Um, and again, if you listened or watched enough of Joan Rivers, you just know the kind of joke she wants. I mean, I can think of one joke I wrote for her that I always liked that she bought. It was something like somebody. I went into the ladies' room where I was performing, and someone wrote my name on the wall in a stall. It said, "For a good night's sleep, call Joan." You know, and I know that's a Joan Rivers joke. So I mean, you just have to know. And I take it for granted that that's a given. But over the years, I've had people send me jokes and thinking that, well, maybe you can get this on to this show or that show. And I look at it and I go, what are they thinking? And I think that has to do with any kind of writing, because I do other kinds of writing too. You have to know your audience and know what they're looking for. Uh, and particularly if you're, I mean, I wrote for Leno from about 92 when he was guest hosting for Johnny until the very end. So that was around, I think, 2013. So I mean, you just know what he's going to say. And there are certain topics he's going to do jokes on. Um, and then sometimes to me, the nice ones are when you send a joke and it has nothing to do with, say, a typical Leno joke or Letterman joke, and they do it because it's just a good joke. That's fine. And the other thing is you may send someone the very best joke ever written, but if it's not what they're looking for that night, uh, they're not going to use it. And it's no reflection on the writer. It's just you have no idea what they're looking for that night.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, like you can never take that stuff personally because some people will take it the wrong way and say, "Oh, it just means that I'm not a good writer." It's like, no, 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 that's not what it means at all. Like, I mean, you gotta. It's kind of like acting. And someone's auditioning. There's 100 people who are auditioning for one role, but only one can get it.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's just how it is. How many people normally like say like per show, how many people normally write like yourself per like episode? Is there like I mean, you're freelance too, so but are there other freelance writers who will also send in jokes, or are you like they say, okay, send us jokes for this episode? Is that like your episode, or do they have other people who send in stuff as well?
Well, number one, I have no idea how many people used to do it. They never told us. But basically the way it works is you do two things, or I did two things. Number one, I'm a news junkie, so and I still do this. I've got a couple of newsletters, news that are subscription based, where I look at the news every day. This is what I still do because I'm a news junkie. So you watch the news and you say to yourself, well, you think they'll do a joke about this? Particularly if it's about the president or something, they're going to. Also, if there's just another odd news story that everyone's talking about, there's a good chance they're going to tell a joke about it. On the other hand, you may find a story that no one has talked about, and you just say to yourself, "Hey, this looks like a good idea." I'll send something in about that. So uh, again, it's putting yourself in the head of the comedian and the comedian's head writer. Um, and then they're different. I mean, Letterman, for example, uh, was a little different. I don't think he had as many freelancers, and I don't, he didn't tell as many jokes in his monologue. But if you, chances are, if you sent him a joke and he wanted to use it, he would drastically rewrite it. Um, which that's just the way he worked. But you just don't know. It's a numbers game. You just gotta send in a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, and that's all that you can do, right? How do you deal with they're like real world events like just recently? I mean, I'm sure that you've probably heard about Donald Trump's recent assassination attempt, like something like that where it's such a big like people say whatever they want about Trump. I'm at the end of the day, that's a scary situation. Somebody else lost their life. How do you deal with they're going to talk about that, but you're also like you don't want to make light of the situation. Like how do you kind of deal with that kind of stuff?
Well, I don't. I mean, I don't think anyone is going to be telling jokes about assassination jokes unless it's about Lincoln or something that happened
Yeah.
way, way back. Um, in general, I mean, I'm a political junkie, but I have to say, up until recently, um, I did a lot of political stuff. And I try to read my audience. I'm thinking mostly of my subscribers because a lot of them keep in touch with me. And I think after I would write a lot of political stuff each week. But I have to say, after the Biden Trump uh, debate, everybody just kind of went, "Oh, I'm so tired of this," and including myself, which kind of surprised me. So I've kind of cut back on it a little bit. And I also just follow the lead. I mean, to be honest with you, I'll watch Colbert, I'll watch Jimmy Kimmel, I'll watch Jon Stewart or The Daily Show, and I'll just see what angles they're using. Because sometimes I'll look at this and I'll go, there's a joke here, but I'm not sure what the angle is going to be or how, where they're looking. So I mean, I watch other comedians to see what they're doing, but I mean, I sense a general exhaustion about this whole election and what everyone's been going through. So I've just tried cutting down a little bit lately on political stuff. Um, and that's about it. You just have to read the audience.
But like you said, they still make jokes about Lincoln, which was like years and years ago. So in about 100 years from now, when we're both dead and gone, they'll be making jokes about Trump's assassination. But and I mean, what's your take on like something that would have happened like way back, like as we said Lincoln, and then maybe in as I said 100 years from now, people will then be kind of making jokes about that,
Well,
about Trump getting shot. How do you think? Do you think time plays any difference in the joke? Like, does it make it any less offensive or?
well, there's a classic joke that Johnny Carson, I believe he was the first one, or maybe it's an old joke that he told. But I remember years ago he was doing his monologue and he was telling a joke about Lincoln at the theater, and it must have been about an assassination. And the audience groaned a little bit. And he looks over at Ed McMahon. He goes, "Too soon." Uh, you know, it's still. Well, I think it was still too soon. And I've heard other late night show hosts use that same line when they tell a joke about something that happened 100 years ago about an assassination or something, and the audience kind of groans and they go, "Well, it's still too soon." Yeah, it's boy, that's why comedy is tough. There's no one written rule about it.
Right. And it's different for a lot of things, but then also you have written for roasts as well too. Now that's something there where you go into it knowing like, okay, like no holding back. Or how do you do it? Do you restrain yourself on certain things because yeah, sure, it's a roast, but then there's also some lines you don't cross. Like I know recently the roast of Tom Brady, I know that there were lots of people who thought that they went a little too far with it. And my opinion was maybe it did, but it was no different than any of the other roasts that we've seen. I think it's just how we've evolved as people. I That's what I think it is anyway, because I mean, I watched the roast of Tom Brady. I'm like, that just seemed like a typical roast like they've been doing for years. I mean, like, how do you deal with writing stuff for roast? And which roast have you written for?
I've written mostly for local people's local businesses or politicians, but I'll give you an example of how I dealt with it. Uh, a guy who I know who was, and he's still on the radio here. He does political stuff and current events shows on a local PBS station here. Um, he was going to be at a roast for a guy who, another big public figure here, who was a car dealer. Everybody knew who this guy was. So I could think of a lot of things I would want to say about this guy that were maybe borderline nasty, but I ended up doing a lot of stuff that were just typical car dealer jokes, and I can't remember any of the jokes, but they were more like, I don't know, there's a punchline they always use where a car dealer is saying to a customer, "Well, I got to go talk to my manager," or maybe the punchline would have to do with 0% financing or something like that. So you just got to know how far to go, and that's the only way I could explain it. I mean, I know I know when things get a little too personal. And I have to say, I mean, I was kind of surprised with some of the Tom Brady's roast stuff because I thought, and maybe actually the thing that made me understand the Tom Brady roast more than anything was I watched some of it, and then the next day I looked on the internet, and there were so many uh, postings about it, and I thought probably most of what a lot was said at that um, roast had to do with people trying to get on social media, getting their quotes on social media, because it was about, what they said on TikTok, what they said on Instagram, what people said on Twitter. And I think that's one difference between roasts now and roasts years ago. People weren't trying, someone would be at a Dean Martin roast or something, those things they used to have on TV. And they were just trying to get a laugh. They weren't trying to make the news the following day. So I think that has something to do with why roasts are a little different now. Although I mean, I have to admit, some of that stuff about Tom Brady was, it just surprised me how far they went.
Oh, brutal. And I mean, like there were lots of stuff where I'm like, okay, that was brutal. Yes. I mean, like there's no doubt about that. But then you go back and you watch like the Charlie Sheen roast, you watch like the David Hasselhoff roast, Bob Saget's roast, and actually even Joan Rivers. They roasted Joan Rivers as well too. I'm like, okay, to me, it just seemed like that was typical roasting. Like it didn't seem like they were going too far. Justin Bieber, they roasted as well too. But it affects people differently. Like people look at it differently, and it's just a matter of how you deal with it and how far you're willing to go. If you're just slamming someone over something like real like what was one that I'm thinking, oh, it was the roast of Charlie Sheen, I believe it was Amy Schumer made a joke to one of the guys, Steve-O from Jackass, because Ryan Dunn, the co-star from Jackass, passed away a few months back. before they filmed that, and then she kind of made a joke about him. It was, Steve, I'm sorry for the loss of your friend Ryan Dunn. I know you were thinking it could have been you, and we were all thinking, why wasn't it? And nobody laughed at it. They were just, oh my God. So even then, I'll be like, okay, maybe that was like a little bit, there's certain lines you don't cross. Um, so, but do you see it as, if you go to a roast, is it one of those like you should know what you're getting into kind of thing, or is it more so like, okay, know what you're getting into but know when to hold back,
I,
if you know what I
I,
mean?
I, I think everybody at this point, particularly after the Tom Brady roast, everybody knows what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Um, Particularly the ones that you see on TV. If you do, or if an organization is roasting someone, that's a little different. If they're roasting a politician, that's a little different. I think everybody tries to go up again, up to that line and not cross it. But it really depends on the venue.
No, exactly. Like someone said, oh my God, how could they do that to Tom Brady? It's like, well, no, Tom Brady before the roast said, give me all you got. Like he was fully prepared for what they were gonna do to him. So he was like, guys, don't hold back. He said, just lay into me. And so then if he came out afterwards thinking like, my God, that was too far. It's like, well, you said you wanted us to go all out. So, but I guess it's different for some people. But so talking about your book now, which is of course live from the beginning of time, late night comedy monologues through the ages, and I got to tell you, I thought this was so funny. So basically, it's a series of monologues taking us all the way back to like the Stone Age, which it was very like essentially if Jay Leno lived in the Stone Age kind of thing, or Letterman or Colbert or Conan or any of those talk show hosts. How'd you get the idea to do this book in particular?
Well, the basic premise is what if there were late night shows since the beginning of time? What would the host monologue be? And I just happened to be, I was on vacation. I was up in Maine, walking along the ocean on a beautiful summer day, and I just all of a sudden thought, what if there were always late night monologues? What would they be saying? So I mean, that's the book, and I just started writing monologues about events that people were kind of familiar with. I mean, the first one was the one about um, the first man walks on two legs. That's the Homo erectus, and that took place about 2 billion BC. And so I just thought a guy would be up in front of an audience going, there are these new inhabitants that have been spotted in the neighborhood. They only walk on two legs. They use the other two limbs for gesturing. Look at me, I can walk on 2 feet. So and then it just goes on. So I mean, they're all mostly factual. But I just thought that was kind of funny, and I just thought, I like writing. I like writing the monologue material. The problem is, or even with my own stuff now, you write a joke about something that happened today, and next week it's obsolete. So I wanted to write something that you could put in a book, and that would be evergreen. It just wouldn't. It always be good. So that's why I thought this is a good idea. So I just started thinking of events in time that people are very familiar with, because I didn't want to spend a lot of time explaining, like, the invention of the light bulb, or the fall of the Roman Empire. Um, I also have what's called desk pieces. Desk pieces in late night shows are these short pieces the host does at their desk, short things. So I also have short pieces in it. So, for example, I have one called Emperor Caligula's Orgies, Do's and Don'ts. So don't roll in the free buffet while engaging in threesomes, stuff like that. Uh, so number one, they had to be things that wouldn't that would not become obsolete after I wrote them. and they had to be mostly events that people were familiar with. But I spent a lot of time just, I won't say doing research, looking up information about them. So there is additional information about things. I just they had to be kind of familiar because I didn't want to spend a lot of time explaining what happened here and there. And I just started writing them as they came along. You know, I just look up history timelines and go, oh yeah, why don't I do something on this event or that event? And then when I felt like I had enough for a book, I took them and I put them all into put put them all into chronological order. And I said, oh, this is kind of like, in a way, a little like a little history book because it's all about events in history. Uh, but they all have little twists. So, you know, for example, this is one of my favorite ones. It's the Native American reaction to the first Thanksgiving here in Plymouth. I'm in Massachusetts. So this particular monologue was done by not a pilgrim, but by the one of the Native Americans. Uh, you know, so one of them says something like, and you know, what's with the big funny hats with a weird buckle when an understated feather will perfectly complete the outfit? Things like that. Uh, so I just you know, all I could say is I would sit down every day and say I got to do one of these monologues, write it down, write it down, write it down, then finally I put it all into a book.
And
And
then
some
here
of them
we are.
there was a couple. I'll just mention one that turns out wasn't even factual, but I made it into a monologue, which was, you know, one day I'm sitting around going, well, what about Sir Lancelot? And then thought to myself, well, did Sir Lancelot even exist? So of course I looked him up and he didn't. So I have a monologue where the host comes out saying, you know, I told my staff we got to get this Sir Lancelot on the show. And they kept saying to me, he doesn't exist. And I said, no, he does. You got to get him on the show. And then it's a whole monologue about that. So it's everything. But I really enjoyed doing it. And I think it's a very funny book.
It is fantastic. And so when you wrote them, because you wrote them as like late night monologues, like late night talk show host
Yes.
monologues, did you write it with anybody's voice in mind? Like, does that kind of help you with writing jokes? Like, just say, okay, I'm gonna write this in Letterman's voice. I'm gonna write this in you know, Jimmy Kimmel's voice. Like, is that kind of how you did it, or you just wrote it as Ben Alper?
I wrote it as me because I mean, for years now, I've been writing for myself too. However, many people who have read this book have said to me, you know, when I read your book, I could hear Johnny Carson telling the story, or I could hear Jimmy Kimmel telling the story, or I could hear uh, Stephen Colbert uh, telling the monologue. So I think it depends on the reader.
I
And
read it as Leno.
I beg pardon? Len, I would say in terms of who I write like, I would say I'm more like Leno than anybody in terms of my sensibility. For me, he was the easiest guy to write for. Um, and actually, I was thinking of doing an audio version of this, and then I thought, well, you know, I got over 100 of these monologues. Does that mean I got to get 100 different voices? And I thought, well, I might not do that. So,
I mean, you could though. I mean, like, you know, like this whole podcasting platform. I mean, like, it's actually well, because how many pages is the book? Like 112 or something like that. I think it was.
it's about 112. It's yeah, and there are, I would say, about 100 monologues, and a number of them are the short pieces.
I think
Uh,
it'd sell because I mean, people would could literally just do it, like just listen to it while driving, or do it, listen to it while you know, cleaning the house, like just something to just kind of like, you know, cheer them up. I think that'd be a great idea. That's just me personally, but
well, I think the hard part for me was, well, maybe if you had one person who did the same voice for every one of them, but I keep thinking, well, I got to get somebody who can do a different voice for each one of these because each one of these represents a different person. I don't know. I may do it. I haven't made a final decision on it yet.
No, absolutely. Are you an actor yourself or a stand-up comedian, or you just stick to the writing part?
I I'm not a performer, to put it mildly. Although I have to tell you, I told one joke the other day, and this had nothing to do with it in front of a crowd, and I thought I killed it, but I may not have. I was walking down. I live in an old warehouse building sticking out into Boston Harbor, and I was walking along these wharfs the other day, and I come across a guy on a park bench lying face down. I don't think he was homeless or anything, but he was sleeping. And this is a story that kind of tells you how a comedy writer thinks. And I walked past the guy, and there's a young woman walking towards me, and I see she's walking towards the guy, and I just said, "He's single." And she kind of smiled, but I got 10 yards away, and I said, I probably should have said he's available. Uh, so that was my acting for the year.
That you're like, I'm done. I'm not doing it again.
No, I have never had the desire to get up in front of an audience and do it. It's never occurred to me. And I know there are a lot of people who describe themselves as introverts who love performing, and I know I understand the thinking of that. Uh, but I've just never done that. There's never been a moment there. Well, every once in a while, when someone really botches something I wrote, there's a part of me that gets frustrated and said, "I wish I was up there to tell that thing right." But that's not a good enough reason to become a stand-up comedian.
You come on stage during Leno's monologue. You're like, that's not how I wrote it. That's not, you fucked it up. Live
Well,
and everything.
it has happened where and I won't say who they were, but some of them wrote a joke and kind of messed it up, and it was a little frustrating. But that it happens.
No, exactly. And it's like, well, what can you do? It's live. They heard it. You can complain and say that, oh crap, you messed it up. Don't do it again. It's like, okay, but they're not gonna do it again. So it's just as long as they got the point across, as long as the punchline hit, I guess it's okay. Uh but
You know, you know,
but
you
yeah.
know, I have a photo on my wall. It was from the New York Times. A friend sent it to me and framed it. And to me, it sums up how I feel about comedy. They did an article. It was about David Letterman towards the end of his run on his show, and they took a picture of him, and it's from his back over his shoulder, and he's looking at a cue card. His um his cue card guy is holding this up, and he's rehearsing a joke, and the joke is mine.
I'll go away.
Um, and and I thought that's the perfect for me. This is the perfect photo. I'd rather have a picture of my joke with David Letterman than me with David Letterman. So that's
The best
that's
out of both worlds.
yeah. So
Well, still though, it's an honor. It's an
yeah.
honor, absolutely. But speaking of an honor, it was an honor to have you on here today. First off, having read your book, thought it was great. And I always have nothing but the utmost respect for comedy writers, because comedy can always be hit or miss. And as long as it the punchlines land and everything, there's a lot that comes to comedy writing. And I had a blast reading the book. And so people can find it on Amazon, like pretty well anywhere, but preferably Amazon.
You can find it on Amazon, or um, if you just Google Ben Alper, Benalper comedy, you'll come to my website. And if you click on that, you'll immediately see a thing for a book, and there'll be a link. It says order this book or order now. And you click on that, and it into goes to Amazon. Or you just go to order the name of the book, which is Live from the Beginning of Time. and Ben Alper Amazon, and it'll be there.
Perfect. So, guys, be sure to mark that down and be sure to read the book because it's great. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I gotta say, I love your humor. I love just your personality. I love everything about you. And congratulations on all your success. And just hope that we can stay in touch and do this again sometime.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Frankie. I really enjoyed doing the show with you.
Oh, there. Thank you very much. My pleasure. So, guys, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. But until then, this is Frankie and Ben signing off. Thank you very much, Ben. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Corporate Entertainment Show. That was me and Ben Alper. Be sure, guys, to check out his book, Live from the Beginning of Time, Late Night Comedy Monologues Through the Ages. Hilarious book and hilarious man. Great writer. And thank you so much, Ben, for coming on the show today. All these years of working in show business, it's just an honor just to hear people's perspectives, not just working so long in show business, but working for some of the greatest. Jay Leno, you know what I mean? Like, that's a big one there. Letterman. So yeah, thank you, Ben, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Moving on to the topics, the two topics today. Why Shrek 5 is going to hit $1 billion. Now, let me just preface this by saying that in no way am I going to rewrite history on this in 2 years if I then Shrek 5 comes out and it doesn't hit $1 billion. I just want to give my case on why I really do think it will hit $1 billion. Now, I know some might say, "Oh, you sound so head up your ass. It's not going to hit $1 billion." Well, when you take these 5 reasons into consideration, that's when you kind of realize that, damn, like, maybe it will hit $1 billion. I don't know. I did the same thing with Deadpool and Wolverine, which, by the way, is this week. I cannot wait. I'm going to review it on the next episode, not this week's episode yet, obviously, because I didn't see it yet. But the following episode, we're going to have a review of Deadpool Wolverine. I'm so pumped. I'm so excited I can't even talk. I'm so hyped for it. It's going to be an awesome time. I'm going to see it Saturday, I think, is when I'm going. So if anybody is trying to reach me on Friday at all, my phone's turned off because I don't want any spoilers for it. I want to go into it as clean as possible. And then also we got Comic-Con too, so we're going to get some news on that. But anyways, that's a topic for next week. Let's focus on Shrek because they just announced that Shrek 5 is a go. Now, we knew for a while that it was going to happen, that it was in development, but we never heard any concrete details. Then Eddie Murphy kind of let it slip that, yeah, I've already started recording for Shrek 5 and it's coming soon. And then, of course, a week later, we got the official announcement that Shrek 5 is happening. It's coming out in July 2026, which is actually crazy. So it's literally, July 1st, 2026. So in less than 2 years, we're going to see Shrek 5. I think maybe we'll get a trailer by the end of next year, if I had to guess. Now, that's, we'll kind of, wait till then. A million things could change between now and then. But anyways, why am I so firmly in the mindset of this is going to hit $1 billion? Well, we'll start with number 5. The past generation still loves Shrek. Now, that means that's kind of like my generation, the 2000s. I was born in 1999. We still love Shrek. Shrek is still very, very relevant. We're showing people are showing their kids. I'm showing my nieces. My nieces love it, which will kind of bleed into the next point I have. But Toy Story proved that more than anything that, or not just Toy Story, Incredibles proved that as well too, when they made a sequel to that. And then when Toy Story made, Toy Story 2, 3, 4, and now a 5th one's coming out. They prove that it doesn't matter how old you are, people will still go to watch these movies, even if they seem too old for that. Like, who cares? Animation's for everybody. And with Shrek, I think people who grew up with Shrek and grew up watching Shrek are still going to want to go and see it. I really, really do. I will want to go see Shrek 5 when it comes out. So that's one reason right there, is just the past generation still loves Shrek. Past generation loves it, and they still watch Shrek. And I'm sure, because I've seen this with Toy Story, people who I grew up with are like, oh, like, Toy Story 4, whatever, blah, 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 and they went to go see it anyway. They were like 20 some, maybe a little bit older. But and if Shrek's any, like, Shrek should be no different, I think. So that's topic or reason number 5. The past generation still loves Shrek. Number 4 is today's generation loves Shrek, which is, like, as I mentioned, I show my nieces Shrek, all the Shrek movies. They love them. They mainly like Shrek the Halls, but that's, it's Shrek. Like, today's generation loves Shrek. And so it's almost like they're passing it down. And, like, it's almost the same deal as, like, Star Wars. Like, people who are in their, like, 50s and 60s now are introducing their kids to Star Wars, and then those people are taking their kids to go see Star Wars. So it's kind of like Shrek is the same deal, where today's generation, they have passed, the words of, continue to watch Shrek, continue to support Shrek, this and that. It's very, very true. Like, that's just how I see it. Like, yeah, there's nothing really else or more that I can say aside from just people in today's generation love Shrek. So that's number 4. Number 5 is the success of Puss in Boots. Now, they have, of course, had the Puss in Boots films. I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one. But, I hear nothing but good things about the second one, too. The first one's great, too. So when you look at that, so Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. Now, spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, but I know it says at the end that they sail for the kingdom of far, far away to visit some old friends. And then that's, it's Shrek. That's who he's going to see. So that got people excited. Like I saw some reactions from the theater. People were just so hyped at the thought of we're getting another Shrek movie. So yeah, like Puss in Boots showed, if Puss in Boots was a success, I mean, let's take a look here too at the success of the Puss in Boots films. Puss in Boots, the first one, made $554 million worldwide. The second one didn't make as much, but still, that's a good chunk of money considering their budget. $480 million. Then you look at the Shrek movies. Shrek 1 made $488 million. Shrek 2 made $928 million. Shrek the Third made $813 million, and Shrek 4, Shrek Forever After, made $752 million. Now you combine, the success of Puss in Boots and people getting excited about that. You're going to look at it now and think, yeah, Shrek 5. Now maybe it'll hit under $1 billion, but if it doesn't hit $1 billion, it's going to be pretty damn close. It's going to probably at least surpass Shrek 2. So that's my thoughts on that, is just that, Puss in Boots really, really helped it. Number 2, 15 years in the making. It was 15 years in the making, at least at the time that it's going to come out. Actually, not 16 years. Scratch that. Not even 15 years. 16 years in the making. Because right now it's been about 14 years. I remember when Shrek 4 came out, I was 5th grade. You know what I mean? Like, that's wild. Now they're making the 5th one. So that long in the making, the hype is going to be so worth it. I mean, look at like Top Gun. Top Gun Maverick is now one of like the biggest movies of all time. And Top Gun came out in 1990 something? You know what I mean? So I feel like the longer it's in development for, the more successful it is. Like almost like Spider-Man No Way Home, where I really genuinely think that if Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina, if all those guys weren't in it, I don't think it would have made $1 billion. I really don't. Well, now maybe I shouldn't say that, because Far From Home made $1 billion, but I don't know. It probably wouldn't have been as near as successful as it could have been had Tobey and Andrew, had there not have been all that speculation about it. Because it was years in the making. We wanted to see Tobey and Andrew back. We would love to see Alfred Molina back. So seeing them all back together after that many years was just, that made the anticipation just boom. And that's why it was, I think, like the top 10, top 5 biggest movies of all time. And, the fact that we waited that many years, not between Far From Home and No Way Home, but we waited years. We were supposed to get a Spider-Man 4 with Maguire. We didn't get it. So it was almost like, okay, this is almost like the next best thing we're gonna get aside from, like, okay, we're seeing him in No Way Home. We might not get him in his own Spider-Man 4, but you know what? This is the next best thing. We waited for years to see it. We waited years to see Tobey come back as Spider-Man. Here it is. And same with Andrew. I mean, we didn't wait as long, but same deal. Anyways, this is about Shrek, not Spider-Man, but same concept. And number one, I'm just gonna say it. It's Shrek. As I said in 3, like as I was just kind of going through the numbers, Shrek still like the movies are successful, and I think all of the above combined makes number one. Is just that it's Shrek. Shrek makes all the money because it's Shrek. Everybody loves Shrek. The movies are fantastic. The first one to me, I think will always be the best one. I just love the first one. Second one, I know some people say Shrek 2 is the better one. It's pretty darn close. It's fantastic, but to me, I still prefer the first one. The third one was very meh. It was okay, I guess, and then the fourth one was really really good. So as long as they can recapture the magic of the first two, I will be happy. But it's Shrek. Like it's you know what I mean. Like it could even be shit. Like Transformers. Look at why that they keep making so many of those. Yeah, they're shit, but they make money. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to make more? But yeah, it's Shrek. That's just basically the long and short of it. Yeah, you know 5. Option 5 or reason 5, I should say, plus reason 4, plus reason 3, plus reason 2 equals reason 1 is just it's Shrek. All those things are because it's Shrek. It's successful because it's Shrek. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's why I think it's going to make $1 billion. Now, just to kind of go through them. Number 5, the past generation still loves Shrek. Number 4, today's new generation loves Shrek. 3, the success of Puss in Boots showed that there's still a demand for Shrek. Number 2, it's been 16 years in the making. And number 1, it's Shrek. It's going to make $1 billion. I'm confident in saying that we can make this. If this podcast is still running in 2 years, then we will see if I'm right or how wrong I was. We'll find out. I mean, hell, Toy Story made $1 billion. Like the new ones made $1 billion. So why should Shrek be any different? I just think it's gonna. But anyways, definitely, guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts on that. I'm real curious to see where people stand on the whole Shrek situation here. And so our last topic is going to be talking about the Alec Baldwin Russ situation, which has been going on since 2021, October 2021, when, of course, they were filming the low-budget film Rust, like a Western movie that Alec Baldwin was starring and producing. On set one day during a scene, Alec Baldwin was given what he was told to be a cold gun by the armorer, by the gun professionals. The gun was shot off, killed the cinematographer Helena Hutchins, and injured the director who survived. But a woman lost her life, and it really just brought into question, how does something like this happen? Like, there's just so many people at fault here, and just something has to be done about it. I don't think it's Alec Baldwin, really. I mean, like, yes, sure, he may have shot the gun off, but he didn't purposely try to kill her. You know what I mean? So just a horrible situation all around that nobody wanted to, like literally nobody would ever want that to happen. It's like a 1 in a million thing. But it happened, and that's just life now. So, but anyways, so Alec Baldwin, he was brought to court because there were the involuntary manslaughter charges against him. So the case went to trial, and the case was dropped. The case was dismissed. And so basically, so this is from CBC.ca. A New Mexico judge, you guys got to hear this because I'm sure you guys have probably all heard it, but I just want to, talk about it. A New Mexico judge dismissed involuntary manslaughter charges against Alec Baldwin on Friday, agreeing with Baldwin's lawyers that the prosecutors and police withheld evidence on the source of the live round that killed Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins in 2021. 3 days after Baldwin's trial began, New Mexico District Court Judge Mary Marlowe Summer ruled after hearing evidence on the defense request in a case that had been plagued by prosecutorial missteps since charges were first filed 18 months ago. Breaking down in tears at the table, the Emmy Award-winning actor turned to hug his crying wife, Hilaria Baldwin, as other family members wept in the public gallery. Baldwin faced an unprecedented criminal prosecution as an actor for an on-set shooting, and his lawyers said prosecutors dragged him through a cesspool of improprieties. Baldwin and his family left court without speaking to reporters. The state's withholding of evidence was willful and deliberate, Summer said in delivering her decision. Dismissal with prejudice was warranted to ensure the integrity of the judicial system and the efficient administration of justice. Wow, just unbelievable. Now, I mean, I'm not going to go much into the law aspects of it. There's a lot of stuff here at play, but wild stuff, man. Like, that's crazy. Now, what I wanted to talk about is how is this going to affect Alec Baldwin in the future? Now, there are some people talking about that they can take him to civil court. I mean, of course, he's clear of any criminal charges, but they can still sue him in civil court. Like, the family can still sue him in civil court, which, I mean, I guess that could still happen, whether they do or not. It's kind of hard to say, but I wanted to talk about what does this mean for his career. Now, I know some people might be thinking, well, he didn't, he's clear of any criminal charges. Like, why would this affect his career? Not necessarily in the sense that, I mean, like, of course, it was just a horrible thing that happened. And nobody ever wanted it to, like, literally nobody ever wanted this to happen. But what I wanted to question is, like, how is this going to affect in terms of, like, who will want to work with Alec Baldwin again? Because I've seen some people talk about that. And in my opinion, I don't think it's going to have really an effect on him, because now I'm sure some people might want that because they might be skeptical of, like, okay, he had all these controversies surrounding him. The charges were dismissed. Can we work with him knowing that some people are going to think this, that, and the other thing? I think he'll be fine. I really, really do. There have been so many worse cases. I mean, like, you look at someone like Robert Downey Jr., who, I mean, sure, he didn't kill anybody. He did a lot of bad things. Now, I mean, these aren't apples to apples comparisons, but he faced the consequences of what he did, and he was able to move on with his life, and now he's an Oscar winner. Alec Baldwin is, I think he's faced the consequences in the sense that, I mean, like, first off, he feels horrible about what happened. It's not going to bring her back. He if he could take it back, I know he would. Like, God, anybody would. Like, just what a horrible situation. So, but how do I think that'll affect his career in the sense of who's going to want to work with him? I don't think it's going to affect it at all. I've seen some people saying, well, Alec Baldwin better, he better start prepping for his retirement because nobody's going to work with him. I don't buy that exactly. Now, there might be some studios that might be skeptical of how is this going to reflect on us and our movie if it's like an Ezra Miller situation where does all this shit and, the movie bombs partly because of what he was doing, like horrible stuff that could have ended with somebody getting killed. In his case, if someone got killed, it would have been, 100% on Ezra, because it's like, my guy, well, he needed help and he didn't get the help. Alec Baldwin was just doing his job and it happened, So I don't think it's going to affect his career. Now, whether they go back to film this movie, I really don't think so. I know I've read some stuff that the widower of the girl who was shot he's on board as a producer and wants to finish the movie. Now, whether they will or not, that's entirely a different question. That's up for debate, but we'll kind of just have to wait and see. I would say probably not, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But how do I think this is going to affect Alec Baldwin's career? I don't think it's going to affect it at all. I think he's going to move past this. He's already moved past this, clearly, because he's now clear of any criminal charges. Now, he may still, there's the chance of a civil suit. But anyway, that's another thing. But anyways, guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts on that. It's a really crazy thing that happened. Glad to see it's all wrapped up now, and we'll see what comes of it. If more evidence comes out that we weren't privy to, who knows? But anyways, guys, be sure to let me know your thoughts on that. And we're going to call it there for the show today, guys. I want to thank my guest, Ben Alper. Be sure to catch his book, Live from the Beginning of Time, Late Night Comedy Monologues from Through the Ages. Fantastic book on Amazon. Hilarious, very well written. I highly, highly recommend it. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening to the show. If you're going to the Rock and Roll Festival this weekend, be safe, have fun, all that stuff. I might see you there. For people who are going to see Deadpool and Wolverine 2, it's going to be a busy weekend, man. Holy shit. Just super excited. Lots of stuff going on here on the river. And I just dropped my recycling bin again. I dropped it at the top of the show, too. Anyways, guys, so thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Until then, this is Frankie signing off. Have a great week and enjoy the rest of your day, whatever it is. Anyways, I'll shut up now. See you guys.